Well, here we are in Vegas. The Success Formula podcast came all the way out here to meet Matt Morgan. Matt, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
We were at dinner with a friend of ours that we've known for about, 10, 15 years named Spencer. And he's like, we're telling about the podcast. And we had filmed, 21, 22 episodes. We were in the top 1%. He's like, it's time to meet my friend, Matt Morgan. So we know that you live out here, but you are not from out here. So we want to hear who you are today. What are you doing in Vegas? Then we're going to back it all the way up to talk about how you were as a kid and your storyline to get you here.
Okay, amazing. Well, thank you for having me on today. I do live in Las Vegas currently. I moved here about a year ago. What am I up to today? So I've built my life to not have to be anywhere, any structured place. So I get to kind of live wherever I'd like. My businesses are all remote or in the digital era, if you will.
That's what we're trying to gear up to be as well.
Yeah, I was very, very heavily involved in the cannabis space for well over a decade, still dabble in it. And you're very structured to wherever your facilities are. So wherever your headquarters is, wherever your offices are, like you have to be there. So I think that's very archaic thinking. There's so many opportunities where you can literally live and work wherever you want.
So you said you've been in Vegas for a year.
A year, but I lived in Vegas previously from 2014 to 2017. So I knew what I was getting myself into. Because of all the COVID nonsense, I was in Arizona in 2019. 2020 came around. We all know what happened. A thing called COVID, which I never really believed in or bought into their story. They tried to scare us all. And I was like, wow, I feel like I'm like a slave locked up in a house. And so my friends own gyms all over Phoenix. And so I would get the keys for the gyms and then go work out. And then I got arrested for trying to work out.
No way.
Yeah. These old people were peeking in the windows. And this is like a 15, 20,000 square foot gym. And then they called the cops. And this happened multiple times at different gyms.
My boxing trainer, we were doing the same thing. Like he owns a gym and it was downtown. And so we would go, he's like, hey, just meet me there, park on the side. Because supposedly like the cops are kind of patrolling around, like checking to see if things are open or not. And so we'd go in like the side door. We'd work out for an hour. But one time we were in there, it was after been like 2 weeks and some cops showed up and like banged on the door, and he goes down there and he's like, I own this place. Like you can't, it wasn't like it was a publicly open.
It was just open to private.
And they were okay. They said, look, we're not trying to do anything. We're just checking, make sure everything's okay. Don't worry about it. And then they left. But that's how it was. That's how they were on the news. That's how they were saying, even in Houston.
I mean, I was scared to death too.
Yeah, if you open, then you could be arrested, right?
Well, we had the fire marshal come to my office because somebody told on us. So the fire marshal was like, we have, 21 places that we have to come to today. And I remember March 18th was the day we shut down because we were forced to. My partner at the time closed down on the 16th. I closed down on the 18th. It was May 1st, they said that not salons, but retail could open. We own a cosmetic line, but we also offer hair services. So I told the hair girls, you guys aren't allowed to come back yet, but we can open the door and sell makeup. Same as Dillard's or Macy's or Neiman's or Saks.
Right.
First day we're open, maybe the second day. And we've been announcing that we were opening back up. We were so excited to open back up because we've been online for 6 weeks. Fire marshal show up. I was shitting my pants. I was like, I'm about to be arrested. I'm about to be like the guy in Houston that got arrested in front of his 100 employees as he opened up his machine shop.
Yeah.
But I knew right when all that happened, I was like, I don't know the reasoning behind all of this, but this is how the mark of the beast. I'm not super religious, but I'm like, this is how this is going to happen. This is how we're going to get barcode stamps to even be able to get on planes or be able to travel. I didn't know how they were going to gateway, but I'm glad we didn't end up going in that direction. But yeah, Sean and I were shamed a lot during that time because we were just trying to keep the restaurants open. That
we were going
at
out 25%. To eat and
of course.
She was posting something and of course she gets like 100 messages that are like, I
can't
believe you're eating out. Yeah. I'm like, what, supporting businesses so they don't go out of business? Like, I don't understand.
Customers came in like a year later and I was like, oh my God, I haven't seen you in a long time with their masks on. They were like, yeah, I didn't come in here because you were super spreading all around Texas.
Super
and I'm like,
spreading,
fuck my life.
What a weird
I'm surprised
time.
Vegas made it through that. Speaking of being here during all that.
Nobody could anymore.
Well, we weren't here during that. took a liking to this governor named Ron DeSantis.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And so I'm very spontaneous. At the time I talked to my girlfriend. I'm like, hey, we're moving to Miami. She's like, we're moving across the country. I'm like, yeah, we're going to try something new. For whatever reason, Arizona was acting very leftish at the time. They had this guy named Doug Ducey who was supposed to be a conservative, but he really fell under the spell of COVIDism. And so I was just like, yeah, I'm out of here.
That's going to be a term in an encyclopedia one day.
Yeah. And it's almost like it's a sickness.
Mindset, yeah.
Like, no pun intended. But so we moved to Florida. It was a lot better than Arizona. I'd imagine it was a lot better than most states. I thought Texas would handle it better than it did. Whatever. And then I just kind of got burnt out on the East Coast. It really wasn't my scene. And so we did 3 years there. And then we wanted to move back to the West. Obviously, I love the weather of Southern California, but there was no version of me being able to live there. So
Yeah, I know. It's
a
hard.
lot of Californians are retreating to Las Vegas because it's like the second best thing that they can find next to that. And so the property values here are going ballistic. Like,
Well, I can tell you from personal experience, I was in Santa Barbara yesterday. We did a wedding there
Yeah.
in the last 3 days. Sean and I gone to Santa Barbara, I'm going to think 2017, 18 maybe. Not even the same
It
city.
was way before that.
Yeah.
So I saw with my own eyes
Yeah.
what you hear. And you never know which side is exaggerating. They all exaggerate, right? Extreme far left, extreme far right.
yeah, they're all crazy.
But it is, I mean, there are homeless people. It's not Skid Row bad, but I mean, our walk from the hotel, Caddy Corner, to Ralph's, which is their version of Kroger.
yeah.
I don't know, Amber, what, 8 to 10 homeless people? More? This is across the city block.
And Santa
And
Barbara
this is
was
Santa
Camped
Barbara.
out.
Santa Barbara was
Santa Barbara.
small town.
It's supposed to be
like,
clean.
Yeah.
Nope.
Orange County's done a pretty good job of keeping the riffraff out. They call it like the conservative bubble or whatever. But it's just like, listen, I can't be in a position where I give that much of my money to the government and then
Yeah.
they don't even give me a clean and safe environment to live in.
Yeah.
It's very backwards, misappropriation of funds and everything else. So I just didn't want to participate in that. My girlfriend loves LA. She's from Massachusetts. Sorry, my fiance. I got to get used to saying that.
I called him my fiance when after we got married for a very long time. So it's a progression.
Yeah, it's
here.
just by like second nature, right? But we got engaged recently. We both said, hey, Vegas seems like a great place to live. They rule with an iron fist.
Yeah.
They make sure that there's not a lot of crime because it would affect their tourism. So they hunker down. And like the nice neighborhoods of Vegas are like extremely nice. Like my neighborhood is 16 years old and it's like guard gated, armed guards drive the neighborhoods every 45 minutes or whatever.
Oh, awesome.
And there's never been a break-in in the entire, 800 homes or whatever it is in 16 years.
I feel like for business too, there's so many people in and out of here. It's so convenient for everybody always to have, just to have meetings or.
I feel totally safe here too.
No one will so if you live in Vegas, like you don't have to leave a lot because no one turns down a meeting
I
to
know.
Vegas.
Yeah.
Like, hey, let's meet in Vegas. They're like, okay.
Or there's a big convention in their industry. Like,
Yeah,
there's
like,
so much stuff.
Everyone comes here at some point in time. But if I lived in Cleveland, I'd be like, let's meet in Cleveland. They're like, no.
I can't
No.
find place
Yeah.
on my schedule
Yeah,
for that.
exactly. Miami is pretty good. Most people want to go to Miami too. But it's just the traffic's like LA, man. It's like suffocating.
If we ever moved anywhere, there'd probably only be a handful of places that I would move outside of Houston. But here would probably be a good choice for sure.
The
just
summer's
because of
pretty
those reasons
hot.
that we
Like I
talked
just
about.
did the summer, and it was the hottest summer on record. I guess we hit
Oh yeah,
120.
I was here in July. I told
Yeah.
the girls, I was like, you think this is bad in the parking garage at the airport now at 100? It was 115, 120. It was
Yeah.
bad, like skin melting off bad.
So I don't think I'll do another summer here, but for the other 8 months, I'm good.
So you said that you wanted to create a lifestyle where everything that you have could be, automated or that you can live
Yeah.
anywhere you want. What type of businesses do you own? Because I know you're a serial entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And you own several different types of businesses. So let's talk first about what you own and then we'll talk about how you got there.
Yeah, so I have a very addictive personality, and so business is like my crutch, so that I don't get involved in
Drugs,
things that are bad for you.
heroin.
Yeah,
She knows a lot about that.
yeah. So I got addicted to fitness and regenerative medicine and business, and so I become obsessive about things. Business happens to be one of them. I actually have a oil chemical company with the gentleman you spoke of, Spencer.
Is that the leaf? I saw something about
Osprey.
leaf. Osprey. Okay.
Osprey Resources. We have that, and then I have e-commerce stores that do like gummy vitamins and stuff like that. And then I have a lot of stuff in the technology sector of like blockchain and Web3 gaming. I have a Web3 gaming studio, and so I'm very, very heavily involved in like the disruption with blockchain. It's very, very mentally stimulating to me. So those are kind of like, I used to have a lot of companies and a lot of things going on, and as I got older, I was like, listen, this isn't, I can't keep doing this.
Yeah.
My fiance would get very upset. And so I've whittled it down to like 3 primaries that I'm like, all right, I'm just going to do this. I'm no longer the operator day to day of any of them. So I'm more like high level strategy, big relationships and stuff like that. So
did I read that your entire portfolio is worth $1 billion of all the businesses that you have owned or the ones that you currently
I
own?
have owned. Yeah. I wish
That's
my
incredible.
portfolio was worth $1 billion, but
Well, that's-
maybe in the future.
It's still amazing to have that accomplishment because I
Thank
know
you.
how hard it is. Sean and I are both business owners. He's very much like you. I think you just described my husband and yourself, so you might be the same person.
And I see the opportunity in everything. Like I'm just like the shiny object. I'm like, I could do that. I could make that big.
That's my problem.
Yeah.
And I've learned that I can't do it without people. And so we won't invest in anything now that I physically have to spend a bunch of time on. And
Yeah.
so we definitely find the right person to go run it. And if we have to give them equity, you know, over
That's
time,
the hardest part
if
is
they
the
have-
operator
yeah,
by far.
it is. And then
So-
that if you find the right person though, that's how you're going to be successful. And so that's what we've done lately. And we've been really good at picking operators, I think, just because of doing it for 25 years, right? And knowing what to look for. And so our last two investments are working out really well, just mainly because of the operators and the guys that are running that business. And so since I'm just like you, like I got to the point where there's no way I can be the CEO. I don't want to be the CEO. I don't want everybody to call me every day, but I could never not be involved. That would be
right.
like I would have to be involved in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, so the CEOs call me like almost every day.
Yeah,
you know,
it's the same thing. That's who you end up talking.
But you have one person you're speaking to, not an entire team coming at you.
All the poop lands on their plate, right? The shit, and then they call you if they need you. But a good operator only calls you for like high level advice. They handle all the small problems.
Yeah, I'm trying to get to that with my company too. I have my she's kind of CFO, COO, all the things all wrapped into
operations,
one.
Yeah.
But now we've kind of, before when she came on board, I guess it was like 4 or 5 years ago, everybody was coming to me for everything and couldn't focus on anything high level.
Right.
So that goes to my question for you is now you learned that very quickly, just like Sean did. You don't want to be doing the little customer service bullshit. You don't people come into you for stuff. How do you find the right people from the very beginning? Give me an example on that. Someone who runs the company so you can be hands off.
Well, that was easy. I had Spencer, right? And he's already proven himself as an operator in the oil field business. So that one was easy. But like, for example, my buddy who has a pretty big name in gaming, he created an app that got over 1 billion downloads. So that's like 1 out of every 8 people in the world downloaded it. He had the gaming studio. He was overwhelmed because he had an AI project as well. So he called me and was like, yo, you want to buy this gaming studio from me? And so I looked at it, and I was like one of the seed investors. So I knew the project relatively well. And I looked at who was going to run it for me because I wouldn't have bought it unless I had the operator. Yeah. So I actually brought the COO in. He was my friend, and I brought him into the ecosystem to run the company day to day. And so I was like, if he stays, I'll buy the company.
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah. So now it's almost like you do it in reverse. Once I have an operator for something, then I'll end up going to find an opportunity because I'm like,
you're actually investing in the person.
Yeah.
Like I'll take a rock star operator with an average business.
Yes.
Better than a crazy, amazing business and an average operator. Yes. Like it's. Like you bet on the jockey, not the horses, you know.
That's really true.
Yeah.
And I think it's where a lot of people fail, as they have a great idea for a business, but they don't find the operator. They try to do it themselves because like what comes first, the chicken or the egg, or they don't want to spend the money on the labor.
Though.
And that's kind of where I found that, you know, I won't say I've failed, but I could have done better, is I tried to do too much myself. And I didn't hire the right people from the very beginning that would take over all those responsibilities, so I didn't get burned out.
Everybody does that.
Well, the whole premise of the show is to explain, you know,
18 years. I mean,
the podcast is to like teach people, like, what am I doing wrong? You don't have the right people. Stop what you're doing today. Stop having every person in the company contact you for every little thing. Streamline it, create layers of management where they can go to their direct supervisor. And then when something gets too big where they don't know how to handle it or it's something new, then they come to you.
You just can't scale that way.
You can't scale. Yeah,
no human can handle more than 10 direct reports in an org chart, like a reporting structure. I recommend 7 at most. And if everything's ending up back on your plate, then you have the wrong people underneath you in the reporting, like organizational chart. I had to learn this the hard way. You know, I used to run around with my hair on fire for 12 hours every single day, 7 days a week.
That was me last year. Yeah,
most people aren't operators. You know, I think it's probably like 1 out of every 10,000 people is a good operator, something like that.
It takes a lot of patience.
Yeah.
Something I don't have. People who have ADHD like me or like us, we just don't have the patience for it, and you need somebody.
She's really good at like the details. She actually is a good operator.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's her
the
best.
people. I'm not good with the people. I'm over people. That's the problem.
Yeah, but as far as like processes, I'm a good operator. And, like, she's amazing at it.
Because I'm the one who fine tunes everything. Sean is like
I'm like
find it, sick it, chew on it, spit it out, think everyone's going to handle it, and then just go on to the next thing.
Well,
for me,
also,
I want to tie up all the loose ends. I want to make sure all the communication is perfect, that everybody's been looped around 15 times, that everyone's on the same page. I just don't like hiccups and errors. I like it perfect. He doesn't care. He's like,
I want to
worry
move
about
fast though, and I'll figure it out along the way. I don't like to. It just, you can't move fast enough like that. To me, in my mind. Even with the podcast, we've never worked directly together. She's always had her own businesses. I've had my
Maybe it's for the best.
He told me from the very beginning. I met him 16, 17 years ago. I think October might be 17 years ago, 2007. So whatever the math is on that.
17.
And he said to me, he goes, that is one thing I will never do, is go into business with you. He's like, I love you too much. I'm not going to do that. And then here we are today.
I think that's healthy. I think that was the right thing.
The podcast in the beginning though, I was like, go, 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 go. And she was like, whoa, hold on. And so We got a little bit of it, but everything's fine now. And so technically we're working together.
He always says we balance each other out. He's
Yeah.
like, we need one of you, we need one of me.
Yeah, you got to
'cause
slow me
it'll all-
down sometimes. And
It's
say,
the yin and the yang,
Yeah.
you know? And they both definitely serve a very powerful purpose.
So let's rewind it all the way back. I read that you lived on a farm.
Yeah.
Where did you grow up? Tell me
My
about your-
family homesteaded in Montana in 1860. So I'm a 6th generation Montanan.
Awesome.
Oh, okay.
Homesteaded 10,000 acres.
Well, we watched 1866 or whatever
Or
the hell it is.
Yellowstone.
Yeah.
Love that show.
I'm
Yeah.
sure
And I never
Yellowstone
liked
just
old-
like inflated
Yeah,
the property
so-
values like crazy out there.
Like when I left Montana in 2010, I just hit my professional ceiling and I just knew I had to get to bigger ponds, you know. And houses back then there, you know, you could get a starter home for like 120,000 bucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now with Yellowstone and COVID and people want to get away from big cities, like
1 to 2 million, I bet.
no, for like a 1,200 square foot starter home on like a little 5,000 square foot lot, it's like 600.
Wow.
But it's like it's the 5th most expensive city in the country to live in, with the 3rd worst paying median income. So like no local people can afford to
Yeah.
own real estate in the cities.
So it's pushed them all out.
And all these people are coming from very liberal epicenters, like cities, and they're pushing that into Montana, where, you know,
like
Montana.
rent control New York at this point to keep.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you keep
well,
your
now the
farmers?
homeless population's out of control, and they're trying to find places there that they can live for free. It's just like it's like miniature California all over again.
Yeah, they did that in Austin too because it was
Yeah.
getting so overran with homeless people downtown. They built them a camp on the north side and they
Yep.
shipped them all down there and they go, "This is where y'all gonna live, hang out there."
Yeah, the
We're going
mayor
back."
saw it coming though, and he actually really took action and
Better
kept
than
it.
being just hanging all over everything.
No, it
you
was
know?
getting really bad. Like we had some friends. We have
It's getting dangerous.
a second home there now, but before that, we had some friends that were like, it's like I don't really like to walk to work anymore. It's kind of, and they were women, but
Yeah.
Usually the
it's-
homeless people won't bother you. They kind of keep to themselves. But,
still,
it got to
it's-
the point where you were getting a lot
yeah,
of
you're
violent
walking
people on
around
the streets.
tends
yeah.
to go to work.
Sometimes
That's just
like
stupid.
they are in a drug craze and you just don't know what. They're very unpredictable. Like in San Francisco, I used to have when I was a public market CEO, we had dispensaries in Oakland and San Francisco. So I spent some time there, and this is 2019, 2020. And it was very, like, I got in some altercations with homeless people.
Oh, we had one when we lived downtown for 8 months when our house was finishing being built. There was one guy, he's about 4'10", white guy with this like curly hair this big, and he was full of rage. And I told Sean, I was like, don't even look at him, don't even talk to him, because he's
Yeah.
got the meth rage and he's
Yeah.
gonna whoop your ass. He was like half a Sean's size. I was like, he's gonna whoop your ass.
He's
He is
on the
absolutely
basalts.
crazy. And it was like a Beyonce concert.
Yeah.
Everybody had on white and silver standing in valet. There was probably 80 people in valet. He took a red soda and he's like, fuck all of y'all, and just like threw red soda all over everyone in the valet that was going to the concert. I mean, this guy was unleashed, and then started like racial profanities at all the valet guys, and they're like, yeah, this happens at least once a day with this guy.
Well, 99% is drugs. They say it's mental health, but it's
Well, the mental
because
health comes from
the drugs. Yeah,
People just don't end up homeless one
No.
day. Like, this is a long sliding path of bad decisions.
that's what I always said. So it's not like they're just down on their luck. They basically screwed everyone over they knew in
Yep.
any way, shape, or form, whether family, friends, probably stole from them, probably borrowed money, just anything you can. And then, of course, they're probably on and off drugs. And somebody finally said, look, we're going to kick you out, or, you're not in our
course.
life anymore.
We know somebody personally. I used to live
Oh,
with her.
yeah.
She's my
Yeah,
old
yeah.
roommate. Know her
So-
personally, and she now lives in hotels, whatever a guy
Yeah,
will buy
I
her,
mean-
or under a bridge if she doesn't have a hotel that night.
But that's where it goes. It's like
shooting
you
up
screw over
crocodile.
enough people.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's drugs. And
Yeah.
that's probably why they're screwing over all the people.
I used to feel sorry for these people. I really don't anymore. Like,
I don't either.
And in California, they said it's like 70% is drugs. I'm like, it's 97%.
It is.
If look at all of them.
I went to Skid Row one time, and
Yeah.
it almost is the craziest thing.
Can you
If
imagine
you've never
owning a
different
property in
country,
front of
right?
that?
If
Can
you
you
kn-
imagine owning a commercial building?
into like a high-rise building, and there's like
Cooked.
it's terrible. But when I went down there, until you see it in person, you can't believe how bad it really is. Like, you see pictures and it looks bad, but when you're like walking down there and everybody's fighting and there's just like crazy shit happening,
It's
like
like
a
a
movie.
movie.
It feels
It's like a movie.
it
It's
feels
like,
very
what's that,
like
End of the World, Waterworld.
It, no,
The
it,
Water World, that with Kevin Costner.
yeah, it feels very end of the world. Like when you're
Yeah.
going right in that specific location in LA or whatever. It's so terrible. It's just kind of sad, like that the city ever even.
So how
let it
old
get
were
to
you?
That point.
How old were you when you left Montana?
25.
Okay, so 2010, you're 25.
Yep.
What were you doing in Montana prior
So
to
I
leaving?
actually got involved in medical cannabis in 2008. I dropped out of college on like the 10th day, and I didn't tell my family for like a year. So they thought
What were
I
you
was
going to
doing
school for?
business with an emphasis in accounting. I was always very good with numbers. Like I would never go to math class, but I would show up and pass all the tests. So numbers came very, very naturally to me. So I was like, yeah, if you figure out the numbers of a business, I knew I wanted to be a businessman. I was just gravitated towards that. And then I had a successful real estate career in my, like from 20, 21, 22. And then when I was 23, 2008 came around, and I just got clobbered. I lost my house, the cars, you know, I was overextended, working with builders, developers, all of that. And so I was at the very tail end of my real estate career, I was showing people properties with big shops and stuff for medical cannabis. And at first I just like, you know, turned a blind eye to it. But then the more research I did, I'm like I go down rabbit holes. I was like, this is going to be like, you can see where political sway is going. It's becoming more progressive. I was like, this is going to be like the alcohol boom of the 20s.
So how many states at that time when you first got into this? It was kind of, I know you could see the
I
progression.
mean, it
Where were
like
you at then?
it was still
6?
very, yeah, it was under 10.
So where are we at now? Sean was giving me some numbers
I
yesterday.
think it's, if you look at all the programs, I think it's over 40.
Yeah, 36 is like fully
Full blown.
Not medical. It's 36 or full
I think
blown
it's
legal.
43 with some sort of program.
How is Texas not there yet?
They're probably going to be.
They're very slow in making changes, and they're very cautious and careful. Their program is so butchered. Like I could come in and help them so much, and they could make billions of dollars, but that's for another day. I actually have an application in Texas to try to get a license. It's one of the few states where there's still a massive opportunity. But back then, I was just trying to like be quiet and keep to myself, because no matter the rules were there was no like, here's how you do it. It was like, yeah, you can become a caregiver for patients and you can grow up 6 plants, but we're not going to tell you anything.
It's almost so gray that you don't even.
Yeah. And
There was no oversight at the time? Or
oh no.
it was the Wild West in the beginning?
Yeah. And so we started in my dad's garage, because my dad was very conservative. Like he's, you know, logger from Montana, hunter, fisher, like outdoorsman. And when I told him my next plans, I thought he was like going to be very upset with me, like my mom's side of the family was. And he was like, I want in. I want to be a part of it. And I was like,
were your parents still married?
Was this after?
No, they got divorced when I was 4 months old.
Okay, I was about to say, I was like, that probably caused a divorce.
Yeah. No, so they were, I don't ever remember them being together.
Was this after you quit school or?
Oh
before?
yeah, I was 23.
Okay.
I dropped out of college when I was like 19, tried to appease my family by going and becoming an electrician.
I think a lot of people do that. They're only going to school because
This is
their
the next
parents.
step.
It was a generational thing. It's like you're almost a loser if you didn't
Yeah,
go
it's
to
like,
college.
oh God, you didn't get a college education, but really that was just grooming. That was grooming our society to make sure that they continued.
Yeah.
All they want you to do is go to their higher education, groom you how to be a great worker,
Yeah,
and then
Rockefeller said
go
it
get a
best.
job, listen to whatever the government tells you, be a good little worker bee, and then retire at 65, get your Rolex, and then die. That's what they want. They hate people that go against the grain, don't listen to them. God forbid they make a lot of money. That equals power.
Yeah.
And now you can essentially become a force against the government.
Yep.
So that scares them. They don't like it. But I never really like conformed to societal norms, or I don't know. I was just always different. I didn't really care what other people thought. You know, I was a party boy. I just did my own thing. But I always, no matter how hard I partied or whatever, I always took care of business. Like I never let that get in the way of my business.
I think we were brothers at some point or something.
I know.
It's like
I think
that.
y'all were separated at birth, the two of you guys.
Almost the exact same story.
Uh-huh.
And of course, when you're a young man, you make such bad decisions. But I always had my businesses, and that would always come first. I'd still party, do stupid stuff.
Yeah.
But
2 hours of sleep every night.
Yeah.
For sure. But all my friends would sleep the whole next day, and I'd be working.
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
I,
how
I,
it
would-
was.
I would never.
It would give
I
me too much
never-
anxiety to not follow through with my commitments.
Yeah, I would
Oh,
never
I would be
sleep in
disgusted
or-
with myself if I didn't get my stuff. I couldn't have continued partying. So I'm like, well, I want to keep partying and hanging out with girls and my friends and having fun, but the machine has to keep moving forward too. So sleep was what I ended up sacrificing.
Yeah, me too. It's the same.
So in 2007, I'm assuming this is when everything collapsed with the banks. That's
2008,
when you
the
started
fall of
losing
2008.
everything. Yeah.
And it I was just like, whoa, like the rug got pulled out from under me. I didn't understand economic cycles and like over leveraging.
It's going to be okay for a while.
I was just a 23-year-old kid making money and like having fun and like, you know, had a big nice house and new cars. And I thought I was on my way to like, you know, just retiring when I was 30. Yeah. So then I started growing cannabis with my father. Then I went and scraped a couple bucks together, built out some warehouses, and we're off and running. And we caught on pretty quick. And then I met a gentleman in Montana who sold his waste removal business for $40 million, which is Montana, that's like $4 billion. And so
Also, back then, that's still a ton of money, anyways.
Yeah. And you know, he did what, like he was like top 0.01% for Montana. And so he had spent like 3 or 4 million on a cultivation, and his team ran it into the ground. So when he saw what I'd put together for like 80 grand, he's like, oh my God, like could you come, let's partner on mine and you come, let's be, partners and run this one up. So I ended up getting all of his infrastructure.
Goes back to the operator thing.
Yeah.
Because
And
when you're that guy and you have a business like that and you find the right person, it's like,
yeah.
you can
And
be off and
so
running.
he was kind of like, I guess, one of my first mentors. You know what I mean? He was in his early 60s and I was in my early 20s. Then I'm full blown in cannabis, right? And I started looking around the country because it started to become a little bit of talk of the town. Arizona's like, we're conservative, cannabis is coming, but we're going to roll out a real program. It's going to be a state issued license. You can grow unlimited cannabis because I'm under a plant count. I can grow like, I don't know, through 2,000 plants or something because that's how many patients we had. And so it's kind of like California. It was just
Like, was it a plant per patient? Is that how
yeah,
they
you can grow
calculated
6
it?
plants per patient because that's how they decided that that's enough, that will produce enough medicine for that patient for 6 months or whatever it was.
So I want to talk a little bit of the operation side of this because, again, the whole point of the show is people want to know the details of how you did it, not just scan over
Yeah.
how you went from there to there. So you get these requirements. Nobody's really policing you. You can kind of do whatever you want. Where did you get the $80,000 from to begin with?
So my grandmother had passed away from the farm, and my mother inherited like 100 grand or something. So she was like, here's 80 grand. Just pay me a monthly salary.
I cannot believe your mom, who didn't agree with what you were doing,
No, she hated it. She hated potheads.
but she helped fund this business.
Yeah, because I think she saw that I was what I did in real estate already.
Yeah.
So I was a little
she
bit of
believed
a
in you.
proven commodity. She's like, just pay me a monthly salary and, here's
Okay.
this. And I'm not going to work anymore. I was like, okay. So she was working for the railroad.
You just paid her off. Got it. Yeah.
Yeah, and she still hasn't worked ever since. So
Oh, perfect.
she kind of got on the payroll, never got off for the 80 grand. Yeah, that was, I guess, the trade-off.
In the very beginning, where were you growing the plants? Was it at your house at first until
My
you could
dad's
afford the
garage.
warehouses? So your dad's garage, you were
And
growing.
I remember my buddy had like the most successful dispensary. So normally people didn't have grows and dispensaries. There was people that grew and then there's people with dispensaries.
Uh-huh.
And my buddy had like the most successful dispensary in the state. And our pot was so bad at the beginning in my dad's garage, but I needed money. So I literally had to beg him, and he would have never bought it, but we were like, he's one of my best friends. So he's like, bro, I don't even know if I can sell this, but like, I'll buy it because I know what kind of position you're in. So he bought the first product we produced, and we we're like MacGyvers. You jump out of the plane and you figure out the parachute before you hit the ground. Like that's just.
So what did the $80,000 buy you? Was it just that much for the lights?
No, that the garage, I funded that. It was like 12,000 or something.
Okay.
But then we moved into like we leased a real
Oh,
warehouse with like a little office, and then it was 2 levels. So the 80,000 built out that.
Well,
But
how long did it take you to get from the garage to that? Was it
like
a couple months?
10
or-
weeks.
Oh, was that fast?
Yeah.
So you
yeah.
do
like
move as fast as Sean.
once I bite into something, like I'm like full throttle.
So once you had a proven concept and you kind of knew like how the cycles work.
Yeah, and I'm not even a proven concept. I'm like, I'll figure it out. I have like blind confidence.
So how long does it take for a plant to grow? I have no
It's
idea.
a 16-week cycle from the time you cut the clone from the mother plant to
Okay.
market. So the mistake you make day one haunts you for 16 weeks. You're running cannabis is such a rare business. Like, because later on when I was on Wall Street and I brought investment bankers in and private equity guys, they're like, this is one of the most challenging businesses we've ever seen. I'll tell you why. It's not, so normal industries that are matured are broken up so you can't control the whole supply chain.
Yeah.
Because of monopolistic practices. Cannabis, you can still control it from the raw material to the consumer. So you can control the whole supply chain. And so, and not to mention, you're dealing with live specimens in a large scale manufacturing plant.
Yeah.
I killed off a crop like that was worth millions of dollars.
Oh, a friend of mine's
within a day.
husband was doing that hydroponic plant that are in racks in
Yeah.
these warehouses,
Mhm.
and kind of like those growth walls you have in your house. But yeah,
It's
there's-
like multi-level, and then they have scissor lifts and the whole thing.
yeah,
They were,
it's a
they were
lot
doing
to
lettuce and other organic stuff, right?
yeah, and that's a lot to you have a certain amount of days, and then if something dies or some kind
There's
of
a lot of
disease or
logistics for
The
him.
analogy about growing growing plants in general in hydroponics for soil's like a VW bug. Like you're gonna get there. It's slower, but you'll make it. And then hydroponics is like the Ferrari. Like it's really fun and fast, but you don't know if you're gonna make it to your destination.
yeah, that put too much pressure on me. One disease in the plant and kill off your whole crop, and that's it. Companies
Yeah,
no value.
I blew like when we didn't have any money, I killed like a $2 million crop. Yeah. When we
Okay,
were
so
partnered with the guy that had the.
How did you recover from that?
I
Did you just buy another company stuff and just say,
No,
hey, this is ours?
I just had to regrow. Like I had to restart the flower room, and it was what it was. We just went through a liquidity crunch.
So what killed it all?
So I went in there barking orders, and I'm like, turn on the CO2 burners, and I didn't realize at the time CO2 is heavier than air, and so plants. Most people don't know this. Plants canopy breathes CO2. Like we breathe oxygen.
Yeah.
A plant's root system breathes oxygen. So you need oxygen in the hydroponic system or the soil. You need CO2 for the canopy to grow large. So I turned on the CO2 burners, and I was growing these huge troughs, like 150 gallon troughs, and I was growing like 6 plants in a trough. Well, I didn't have like escape valves in those troughs, so whatever sat in the trough sat in it.
So
And the
just
CO2
smothered
all
it.
sat into those troughs and suffocated the whole room. Everything was dead in like 48 hours. These are like 6 weeks into flower, so I'm like 12 weeks through the cycle. So imagine the amount of money I had invested from raw material or seed clone to that point in flower.
So when you do clone, or when you take like a snippet, what is that called?
Yeah, a clone.
Brian would know because this is what our whole basement looks like. Not weed though, just ivies. If you take a clone from a tree versus growing it from a seed, it flowers faster.
It's an identical. So when there's seeds that's produced from a mother and a father plant, right? The male pollinates the female, and the female produces seeds. A female can produce 2, 3, 5, 10,000 seeds. Every seed is different. Like if you had 10,000 kids, every single kid would be different. So you don't know what you're getting. You know it's going to be something good because the two parents were great genetics, but you don't know exactly how those genetics are going to line up. When I take a clone off a mother plant, it's an identical clone to that genetic. So you know exactly what you're getting every single
So you
time.
could like standardize everything.
It's the only way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise, but breeding is a whole other outlet. It's a whole other thing of madness. But to get to really standardize your procedures, you have to clone or use tissue culture, which is becoming more normalized.
So what was the name of that company?
That was for Evergreen Farms.
Okay. When in 2010, so you're 2 years into this.
So I'm like, hey, Dad, you're going to stay and run that.
Oh, okay.
Because
So you
you
didn't
love
move
Montana.
it. Okay, you kept it.
You've been in Montana your whole life, 50 some odd years at that point, and I need to leave Montana for my own mental well-being. I'm losing my mind here. Arizona's got this new program that's never been seen before in the world. They're releasing 131 licenses across the state.
Oh, okay. So
And you get a dispensary, you get extraction, you get cultivation, and the state is giving you the license. So now if the federal government comes in, it's the state of Arizona and Matt Morgan versus the federal government.
Yeah.
The federal government doesn't want that. They would never want to go to court with the state if they don't have to. So now it gave you an extra level of security that you never had before.
How did you obtain a license? Is it because I'm sure a bunch of people are applying, but how did they pick it? Was it a lottery type
So
situation?
I moved to Arizona, and my partner Montana, he was like, hey, let's open up, you're obviously a good businessman. Let's open up some hydroponic shops where you sell the soils and the nutrients and the grow lights. So I said, okay. So we opened this big place called You Grow. It's like 12,000 square feet. And most of these hydroponic shops were like the size of this room, 1,000, 1,200 feet. So this was like 12, 14,000 feet. It was like a Costco style, it had a wow factor. So while I'm networking like a madman while I'm doing this, and
you wanted to create something like you were the Costco of
the
state
exactly.
where people
And then
would
I
just
was
come
going
buy
to create
from
like
you.
the first chain of hydroponic stores. I never ended up getting there because my focus went somewhere else where there was a bigger opportunity. So anyway, I set up Caregiver Grows in Arizona because they had a caregiver program, but I already knew exactly how to do it. So I had like the playbook. So I fired up some warehouse space. I'm also running You Grow, and then I'm also applying for these licenses, and I'm building these applications that are like 600 pages. And I ended up networking with this. Became good friends with a son of a very decorated politician in Arizona. So I'm like, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna put your dad's name on and he got the anti-corruption award in Arizona. So he had all these like awards as being a great politician. I'm like, we're gonna apply for these and we're gonna put your dad's name on the applications. And he's like, all right, let's do it. So that's what we did.
Was there a ton of resistance from that in the beginning?
Was he okay with it?
On the dad?
He was cool. He lived down in Tucson where the capital is. And like, he was cool. Like we went and met with him a lot, and we got him very comfortable with the idea. And I showed him the warehouse I'd built and like how it was a real business. And he was cool. So, and we thought it was a qualitative system, right? So you're going to get scored points based on the power or the merit of your app. So we spent like $50,000 or $60,000 per application.
What do you mean per application?
You were allowed to put in 5 apps per name. So we used his dad's name on 5 applications.
Okay.
And we used like this algorithm where we're like, all right, we don't think that many people are going to apply in this one, but we also want to try to get this one because it's downtown Phoenix. But
so that out of the 131 applications, they were centralized for like different
areas. They broke
like
it up into
counties or
CHAs,
whatever.
community health analysis areas.
Okay.
And they did this back in 1900 to make sure every person that lived in Arizona was serviced medically.
So you were like Zillow buying zip codes at this point.
Yeah. And so we get down the path, and at the final hour, Arizona's like, we're going to do a lottery. Like they got scared that they were going to get sued for favoritism.
Yep.
And so they did a lottery. I'm like, oh my God, we could have literally put in 50 apps on napkins and we would have had a better chance than spending all these money on these beautiful applications. So by sheer luck, we ended up winning one of the licenses in Sedona, Arizona. And obviously Sedona is a very cool place, but it's not high volume, So I quickly, like within a week, found out who won the downtown Phoenix license.
Offered them some money.
Yeah, we offered them like $450,000, like $150 now. the other 300 on terms, and everyone was like, oh my God, like that's crazy money. And now that piece of paper is worth like 25 million.
Do they still operate that way? So when a state now is going to open it up and it gets legalized, do they still operate in like a
No,
lottery?
no one's done it with like a community health analysis area like that. Arizona's the only state that did that, but they operate with very strict zoning. So like you can't be near a park or a church or a police station or a school.
But is there as many licenses as you want,
Every
or
state's different. Every state has their own methodology of how they want to do this. And they obviously get influenced by lobbyists and things of that nature. But every state, there's no two states that are even similar. And there's been states that have done it very well. Arizona happens to be a state that did it very well. There's been states that have butchered the entire program and driven most operators out of business because politicians normally aren't good business people. And so they're like, oh, so if we have 100 dispensaries and we're making 300 million in tax revenue, if we had 500 dispensaries, we'd be making 1.5 billion in tax revenue, right? And so they basically create such saturation that then people start pushing out of state and all these crazy things happen to stay in business. Unfortunately, what they don't realize is that the market size is the market size, and all you're doing is chopping it up into more little pieces.
Do you have an incredibly high tax rate because of the industry?
Yeah, so the federal government, it's a very odd situation where you have this $50-60 billion annual industry across the nation. The federal government still doesn't recognize cannabis as anything but they put it in the same class as heroin or meth. They're like, you're not running a business, you're selling Schedule I narcotics to drug addicts. And so you don't have any tax write-offs. You have one tax write-off because back when they were trying to nail Al Capone for tax evasion from bootlegging, they brought him to court and they're like, listen, Al Capone's running this multi-million-dollar business, but he's not paying taxes. They're like, well, you have to treat it like a business then. Show us how he's not paying taxes. So they created this tax code called 280E, and they basically were like, all right, Al Capone gets one write-off, cost of goods sold. So he could write off how much he bought the booze for versus how much he sold it for. So there was a gross margin. And that from the 20s, that's still...
But
that
no labor or any, I mean, just
nothing. So
Well, your cost of goods, you can have labor built into that.
yeah,
because
no,
people
on
are
the
paying
manufacturing side you can, not on the retail side. So your dispensary, the lease, all the improvements, all of the employees' salaries, all of that is non-deductible. So the margin in a dispensary is between 9 and 13%.
Wow, that's like supplements.
I kind of figured it would be that way though.
It's like a restaurant.
Yeah.
So then, of course, because we had
If you can grow it and dispense it, then
yeah, but so it's called vertical integration, right? So what you do is you play these transfer pricing games. So you're like, well, it cost us $5,000 to grow it when it was obviously 500. But then you throw the CEO's salary, you throw CFO, all the executive team salaries. Now 90% of it's on the cost of goods sold.
yeah, I currently don't add salaries or anything into my cost of goods. I need to. We put it in a separate place, but I need to be able to put it in there.
You do want to allocate because you want to see
more people
how it's affecting your margin.
Yeah, we only put a little bit of like the manual labor to put the things together, the makeup products together,
Yeah.
like final assembly.
Yeah, she does manufacturing. She
Yeah,
is a
we're just like
manufacturer.
you, start to finish. I
Vertically
manufacture,
integrated, yeah.
distribute,
She sells all the way
retail.
down to direct to consumer, and then she sells
some
wholesale to other retailers. But yeah, direct to consumer is where you're going to make your most
Of
margin
course,
nowadays.
you
yeah.
cut out like 4 people taking profit, right? You're trapping so much of the profit inside. So yeah, so I bought that license downtown Phoenix. Simultaneously,
I can't believe they gave it up and didn't see the future.
nobody at this time had the vision.
I know.
So you
They
think they
didn't
were
get
just
it.
a
That's
bunch of
also
like probably little
These guys owned a
buttheads and
roofing
not.
company or something.
Yeah.
They're like, oh my
They
God,
didn't
you want
know
to
the
give
industry.
us $400,000 for this thing?
Well, also they won it in a lottery. It's like
Literally, their cost of acquisition is probably like $15,000. They're like, this is the best ROI on the planet. So I also met my mentor, who's like my second father during this time. He was giving entrepreneurial classes to entrepreneurs of all shapes and sizes. I hated classrooms, as I've kind of divulged. And so my buddy's like, bro, you got to come to this class. It's so cool. So I'm like, just to like get him to shut up, I finally went to this class, which was every Wednesday. The instructor was this gentleman, owned like one of the largest construction companies in the world, owned car dealerships. He owned like dozens of different businesses.
did he charge for the class, or he was just doing it to give his time? Donate his time.
He didn't charge for it, but I'm sure he got business out,
Yeah.
something out of it. But he was 65. He made his money, and he really got off on helping other people. He was like a very rare breed, like a unicorn.
It's gonna be Sean one day
I don't know.
at the Rotary Club.
No. I kind of feel that way too. I feel like the educational piece that, is not available to most people is what I want to change eventually.
Yeah.
And so you definitely need a ton of influence and stuff to do that. But
I agree. Went there, was a smart ass in class. He asked me to stay after class, and I'm like, oh, I'm in trouble again. And he's like, hey, kid that grows pot. You know what I mean? That's what I
Yeah.
said. I was like, my name's Matt and I grow pot. And this is like when it was pretty taboo. This is like 2010, maybe early 11. He's like, I want to see your grows. I'm like, okay. So a few days later, we went to my warehouses that I was growing pot in, and I rolled up the garage doors, and he's like, holy shit. Like, it was like, it was like a commercial operation. And so from then on, like, we were inseparable. And yeah, from there, like, I was an entrepreneur, and it was like this. And then I met him and just went like this.
Okay, so what values did you learn from him?
Everything. He showed me how to like build a real company. He opened up his whole network of people to me.
Was it like getting, loans from banks instead of you? Well, I guess I don't know if you can even
No,
get
I
a loan
raised
for this
private
kind of
money,
stuff.
right? Like, everyone trusted him, and he's like, hey, I got this new kid. I think he's going to be like the next big thing. And so I raised millions of dollars through his network. He showed me how to build a real org chart with reporting in different departments and policies and procedures. And, either you're going to be reactive into the shit like we talked about, or you're going to be proactive. So you're going to be high level or reactive, but you can't be both.
I've had a really big challenge not being reactive, but I've made huge strides the last year or so, and it will fuck up my whole day because I let one thing, I just react to it.
Yeah.
Mentor slash, coach, teacher, it's super valuable because you can shorten your learning curve all the way down. And
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Yeah, like
something that would have took you 15 years to figure out, you were able to do a lot faster. He just sped it up a little bit for you.
There's no substitute for wisdom. And so he's like, he fell out of the tree and hit every branch on the way down. And so, like, I feel like I went to and got an MBA from Harvard Business School without ever going to school. Like, he showed me all the tricks. He showed me, like, have you ever read the book, like, Rich Dad, Poor Dad?
Yeah.
Like, he was like my rich dad, like I was like his adopted son. And we still talk like 3-4 times a week. You know what I mean? When we met, I was 25 and he was 65. And now I'm 39 and he's 80, right? So we've been like super close, and like, I owe a lot of my success credit to him.
Took me, 20 years, trial and error.
Right.
And you learn from some people, but sometimes you'll outgrow them. And so
After him, like, and I accelerated in business, then other older gentlemen tried to help me, but they always wanted something. He was the only guy I ever met that never wanted anything in return for giving me like this, priceless wisdom. And so he's just a very unique guy. And, he's a good man.
This is why we really push people. A lot of people we interview have classes and courses, because just to have someone, just like you said, he hit every branch on the way down. He's been there, done that. And if someone can speed you, you'll be light years ahead of everyone else in your industry, learning all of those and being told, like, don't touch that stove, it's hot. Or before
Exactly.
you're going to touch it because you don't know what hot feels like, right?
Yeah, but like, just for example, like, I was just some struggling kid trying to figure it out. I met him 5 years later. I'm number 1 40 under 40 in cannabis. You know what I mean? So it's like, I just can't put like a value on that.
So you're doing that. You're still doing that today. What was your next business? When did you feel like you were comfortable enough to like let things steadily run on their own and get off into the next?
What I built, it became Bloom dispensaries. Once I built Bloom, I started to get the attention of like, I ran it up to like $2 million a month in revenue in under 2 months, in 2 years.
Why were you choosing different names? Why didn't you just brand the whole thing start to finish?
I did. I had 6 dispensaries. I had a full vertical with 6
Okay.
dispensaries called Bloom dispensaries. And then private equity guys started flying into me.
What happened to the You Grow or whatever?
Oh, that was to sell soils and grow lights.
Oh,
So
I see what you're saying.
I ended up
Like the Home Depot.
once I got laser focused back on the plant, the actual
Okay.
facilitating of growing the plant and distributing, we shut that down.
Okay.
So I kind of left that mentor in the dust a little bit and was like on to the next. And then I had Harold, right? Like
Rich Dad.
my hall pass, yeah. So Bloom Dispensaries became the business. Was doing like 25 million a year in rev, like 7 or 8 million in EBITDA. That's when I started to get the attention of like the big players. You know what I mean? Because now they were like, this is 2000, late 13. Now some big money starting to like look at this. I ended up selling Bloom to this Wall Street guy because I got an offer from a family office to fund me with 100 million cash, and I was 27. So I get that this family's worth like $5-6 billion or whatever it was, out of Palm Beach. And they're like, hey, great job on Bloom. You proved yourself in the minors, like, let's go to the majors. We're gonna partner with you, fund the company with 100 million, and let's see what you can really do, Because we probably put like 6 or 7 million into Bloom. And so they're like, they were impressed enough to put 100 million behind me at 27, 28 years old. And so I basically departed from Bloom and started my next one.
You didn't have a non-compete?
No, I was the puppet master. I had not know nothing. And they were just so happy to get their arms around Bloom because
Yeah.
I'd already done that. The hard part's like
You
from
already-
inception,
Brand.
cash flow,
Yeah.
right? So I already built the machine.
The system was ready to go.
And they sold Bloom for 230 million to Curaleaf in I think 20 21.
Yeah, so still a good deal for them too.
Oh yeah, they made ridiculous returns on their money. So then I did Reef with the family office, the biggest war chest I think that cannabis had seen at that point. And so I built that up from 2014 to 2018, at end of 17, and went from inception to 3 states.
How much did you end up using? So I know they said they were going to invest.
I think
100
including
million.
real
Like,
estate, I deployed about 88 million. I had 500 people under management under my umbrella. Yeah. Had 200,000 square feet of cultivation pumping.
and so you owned all the buildings, everything. Was
I bought everything. Yeah. And
And what state was that in?
Nevada, Arizona, and Utah.
I'll hear.
Had the highest grossing dispensary in the world. We were doing like 42 million out of one store. I had like Wiz Khalifa under my umbrella, Burner, like all the big names. Yeah. So that was like when things just started to get, like everything just accelerated so fast and it just turned into like a big blur.
So 2018, what happened? Did you sell that?
I got bought
And you
out by the
still have
family
that?
office. So they wanted this to be like their son's like Diamond. He was like 5 years older than me, like a Goldman Sachs investment banker. So they kind of brought him in full time and bought me out. And then I was kind of on to my next.
Were you the CEO at the time?
Yeah.
When they bought you out?
Yeah. So they're like, great job. You did what we asked you. Your tenors, they didn't say this specifically, but I kind of saw the writing on the wall.
I was gonna say, did you expect it when it came?
It kind of hurt a little bit. Like I was very emotionally attached to the business at the time.
And
I didn't.
They wanted a.
You just weren't
corporate
ready
guy.
yet. You weren't
No,
ready.
they wanted a corporate guy.
Yeah, exactly. Like
It's
You have to be
getting big.
ready. You have to be ready.
When it gets that big,
I'm a
becomes
founder
political.
and a startup guy,
Yeah.
and I'm rough around the edges. They wanted Mr.
Structure.
Corporate.
Yep.
I was doing 40 million in EBITDA. You know what I mean? So, like, we were spitting off like 2.5 million in free cash flow a month. And so that was like, all right, kid. Like, and I didn't realize how the real world worked. Like, I'm this naive kid from Montana
Thought it
that
was
just
gonna
got
last forever.
accelerated in 8 years to like the top of the mountain, hanging out with all the celebrities in Hollywood and having 500 people's livelihood revolving around my decision making. And so I didn't understand how big business worked. And I was just like, oh my God. I'm like, again, I have this old man billionaire that like thinks of me as a son. And it was never like that with him. Like not my original mentor. Now I had another mentor, or I thought I did, that was like this, he's worth billions. You know what I mean? Like one of his house was 80,000 square feet. And they would always let me stay at their houses and like,
Felt like you were part of the family.
yeah, like fly me on their jets or whatever. And I'm just like, I'm like, oh, I just didn't understand that not everyone has good intentions. Like I wasn't raised like that. There's no malicious behavior in Montana. And so I just thought everyone was good. And, when I got,
First time it had happened.
when I got kind of had the meeting and they're like, yeah, great job, kid. Like you did what we asked you to, like, kind of like put me out to pasture. Yeah.
What was the result? Like what ended up happening with the company? Did they?
So they literally were like, all right, we're going to bring our son in. He's been with Goldman Sachs for 12 years. He's, graduated top of class from Babson or whatever in one of his Ivy League schools. And we're going to have you go explore new business opportunities. They wanted me to travel around and find new business
So
opportunities.
they still wanted to work with you. They were just
No, they put me out to pasture. Like
Yeah.
they had no intention of expanding the business beyond whatever they wanted to do. So every opportunity I brought to the boardroom, they shot down. So
still hung around a while after he.
yeah. I probably hung around like another 6-8 months after they were like, hey, you're going to be co-CEOs with this guy.
Oh, yay.
But you're going to be the CEO that's out on the road and like looking for new opportunities. And he's going to run the company day to day.
Did they end up selling the company, or what ended up happening?
Yeah. So during like the craze of like the 17, 18 Canadian legalization, like people were getting crazy valuations. So we got an opportunity to like bring Reef up to Canada for like over $1 billion. And the family didn't have intentions of wanting to do that. They're like, we're not going to participate in a stock scam or whatever they said. So I was like, okay. But it was like, real money. Like people made hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars during this time in public markets. Some of my friends did. And so the next offer they accepted was $500 million from Cresco Labs. And then that deal ended up blowing up for some odd reason. And then they sold for $300 million to Curaleaf like 2 years ago. But if we would have capitalized on the craze of the Canadian legalization, I mean, we could have exited for between probably 700 and 1.5 billion collectively. And I owned a third of the company, so I had 1 vote, and then the family office had 2 votes and 2/3 of the company.
You learn a lot about that whenever you
Yeah,
we've been through
It
that
takes
too,
1 or
so-
2 bad business deals. To
Yeah,
know
and
you
you're
can't
like,
ever
I
I say I
have
had
less
one of the
than
most
50%.
expensive educations on the planet.
Yeah.
Because my equity is worth, well into the 9 figures, and then they beat the shit out of me on the exit. So
Yep.
while I was kind of like the cool kid in Vegas with this big, like the hottest cannabis company. And
I already know what you're going to say next.
yeah. I became very good friends with the guy named Dan Bilzerian.
Yeah, I was
And
going to ask you
we
about
started
that.
running around on a daily basis together. He kind of like took on like a big brother role to me. And so me and Reef had the falling out, and he was like, you know what, like, fuck those guys. He's like, let's go build a cannabis company together. So I'm like, yeah, like, let's do that.
Was it called Ignite from the very
Yeah,
beginning?
yeah, yeah. So him and I moved to LA together, and that's when it just got like even crazier. Like, he got this house. It was like 40,000 square feet in Bel Air, and we were there like all the time, and celebrities were with us all the time, and like that's when I really started to question my path, because in Montana you watch all these people on TV, and you're like, oh my God, like
Now you're living it.
that's the dream, and now I'm in the middle of it. I'm like, this isn't really what I signed up for.
Well,
Like,
you
these
just
people
realize how shallow it is and how
they're
it's just
so empty, and they're all there for the wrong reasons, and everything on TV is manufactured, and like I just felt like a dark energy when I moved to LA.
well, he's kind of shut it down too. He doesn't really.
No, he's, we haven't chatted in a long time. We bumped into each other the other day, said, hey, what's up? But no, we haven't really talked or like we used to for, I don't know, 5 years or something. He's slowed way down. I don't.
Do you still have shares in the company?
No. I walked away from all of it. Yeah, his old man and I didn't really see eye to eye. So
His old man, as in his dad.
yeah,
Was his dad involved in that, starting that company?
very, very heavily. Yeah. Well, not at first, but once the ideology of marrying like the megaphone of Dan, married with like one of the best operators in cannabis, then it became very appealing to everyone. Like, we raised an ungodly amount of money in a very short amount of time.
What did his dad do?
He was just pulling all the strings from behind the scenes.
But what is his
Oh, how do you make all the money?
career? Yeah.
He was a corporate raider in Wall Street. So he
Okay.
would go in and buy companies that were failing and then rip them apart and sell all the pieces for much more than what he paid for it. Yeah, he made a lot of money.
Didn't Ignite end up going more of the nicotine route?
So Dan's following, from what I understand, they're having a hard time converting them into cannabis sales. So they made a hard pivot into like nicotine and
Yeah, I
alcohol.
heard
And
of-
I don't know the inner workings or anything. I don't know anything, but I heard they're crushing it. Like, one of my finance guys lives in Brazil, and the other day on a call, he's like, Matt, I read online that you founded Ignite with Dan. Is that true? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, everyone has Ignite vapes in Brazil. He's like, everybody.
Yeah, I heard an interview and he was saying the same thing. It was really hard the cannabis is really hard to convert people to.
Yeah, it's a very novelty item, and if the crowd doesn't buy off that you're like a big connoisseur, they just won't buy your product. If they think you're going for a cash grab, like, nah.
So how did you get into energy business at that point? Because I think 2018
So-
must have been when you
so
got
you-
into
yeah,
energy.
so
So
you
then
moved
I
in-
actually built a biotech company.
Tell us more about that. I want to hear what kind of company that
So
was.
I was kind of burnt on like cannabis, and the sexiness of the celebrities and like the recreational and like all the photo shoots and all the nonsense I had to do with, like, I was interviewing for a lot of magazines and stuff. I left LA. Like, I became such a recluse in LA.
So you were actually living at the house with him.
I was there all the time. No, I had a room there. Like, I'd be there, but no, I never fully lived there. I had my own house. I had a big fancy house in Hollywood, and not like that.
Yeah.
That was like $100 million house, but like I had a very nice house, and I became like, I felt like everywhere I went, because I was on such a pedestal at that time. Everyone was watching what we were doing. We were throwing the biggest, hottest parties. Like, everywhere I went, I felt like someone was trying to extrapolate value from me or take something from me. So I became like a hermit, and I just wouldn't leave my house, and I would Postmates like 4 or 5 times a day. And so after a couple of years of that, I was like, all right, I got to get back to like my roots. So I went back to Arizona. I feel like Arizona's like my home, like I feel so disconnected from Montana at this point. Like, Arizona feels like home when I go back.
Was any different chapters, a whole different book?
It's crazy. Like, I go back to Montana, I just feel like an alien, and like
Yeah.
nothing's changed except for these homeless people and all these purple hairs and everything. But when I go to Arizona, like, it's like where
People feel real.
yeah,
Feel
and
wholesome.
I made it. That's where I came up. Like, that's where I feel like I go back home. So I bought a house in Paradise Valley, Arizona, and just went back there and tried to like stabilize. So I did that until COVID. And then I went to Miami. But during the time back in Arizona, I built a biotech company utilizing compounds out of the industrial hemp plant. I created proprietary formulations with case studies, and I had a crazy science team. And we were actually going after the synthetic over-the-counter pharmaceutical space. So like Advil, Tylenol, wound healing, chronic pain, stuff like that.
It's definitely political.
Yeah, it got really political. I'm dealing with like the NIH and like all this stuff. But I had like people that were so respected in the medical space, because I had this older gentleman that I was partnered with, and he literally had Robert Redford, who was like the director of the CIH. So I had kind of like an ace in my hand, and everyone took us very seriously. Like, CVS is the largest pharmacy in the world. They were like, we want to get in the cannabinoid space, non-psychoactive, obviously. And they held a tryout with I think 150 companies applied, and we won. So we won the partnership
Wow.
with CVS. That's how strong our science team was. Like I got Dedi Miri, who's my friend. He's the #1 cannabinoid researcher in the world in Tel Aviv, Israel. And he's curing cancer with cannabis. Yeah. So, but the weird thing is he's curing like breast cancer with a specific strain of cannabis. But then you take another strain of cannabis and it doesn't do anything to the breast cancer. And then colon cancer, a different strain cures it or gets rid of all of it. But then you take another strain and it doesn't do anything to it. So they're trying to figure out what's called the mechanism of action, which is like a big deal in pharma. But he's a stud, man. He's got like 200 PhDs working under him.
Do you still own that company?
No, so that's the one that got acquired by the public company. And part of the deal was I had to become CEO of the public company.
Oh, that's what the CEO came.
And so I did that this acquisition happened in February of 20. So like 30 days later, COVID blasted us in the face. My dispensaries that I just had got control over through the acquisition. I become CEO. So we have cannabis footprints all over. We have this biotech thing.
Did you have to close down, or was that considered?
Yes. So they're like our dispensaries in Oakland and San Francisco got completely like ramsacked. So people came in and took everything.
Like just looted.
The cash registers were gone. The cash drawers, every fixture on the wall. It was like gutted.
So you didn't open those back up, or did you?
No. So yeah, we did. But the company was just taking hit after hit. And then CVS backed out of all cannabinoid stuff because of COVID. Basically, all of this stuff that I'd been working on just came to a screeching halt. Like nobody wanted to deal with any of this. Everyone was so focused on COVID and what was going to happen and if the world was going to end. So like this whole thing just became a debacle. I stayed as CEO.
When people needed it most.
Oh, yes. And they needed sunshine and exercise, but we weren't allowed to do any of it. And so I did it for about a year as public market CEO. And then at the end of 2020, I put in my resignation and moved to Florida. Yeah.
And you chose Florida because
Ron
DeSantis.
Southern Florida was
You're
like
following freedom.
Yeah. I liked Ron, but also I always Miami was like the only city that was alluring to me in the East. And so I was like, you know what? This is the perfect timing. They don't have a lot of rules for COVID. Let's try it out. Let's see how it goes. So we tried it. We did 3 years. I tried high rise in downtown. I tried a big house on an acre out in the nice suburbs. I tried a house on the water in Fort Lauderdale. So I tried all different living situations there. It just wasn't my thing.
And then from there, where did you go?
To Vegas. Yeah.
So you were there for 2 years, 3 years.
2020, 21, 22, 23. And then I moved here at the end of 23.
Did you start anything at that time?
Yeah, I started a gym in Miami and it's crushing. It's called Boxer.
Okay.
Yeah, it's got like 3,000 members. It's downtown. Like a lot of celebrities are always going in there and stuff. So it's kind of back to that whole marketing. But I've always leveraged, like the celebrity artists built their following.
Yeah.
They did all the hard work. So you just leverage that for different businesses.
Yeah, especially now with social media, the direct access they have.
Yeah. So I was like the first person to heavily use social media in cannabis. And that gave me a huge leg up. Like Wiz Khalifa already had like 30, 40 million followers. Yeah. I'm like, why would I try to recreate
Crazy,
that?
Right?
Yeah.
So I see a lot of patterns in the people that we interview, the obsession with business, the obsession of go, 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 got to have something new, can't stop, growth, growth, growth. You must also be into biohacking.
Of course. Like I like anything that's a challenge that like nobody's been able to crack the code. And like aging and dying at I think an early age, 75, 80 years old. I think that's like the biggest challenge in as human beings is how do we live longer and how do we live a more quality life for more years? And so in 2018 when I was in LA, I kind of had a full burnout, had a hard time even getting out of bed. And you're talking about someone that's, go for 14 hours a day. And it's just like, why am I even getting up? There's no point. I sold my company. Like it was a full burnout.
You couldn't figure out what was next.
And I'm 32 years old,
Yeah, similar thing happened to me as how I got into it. And I don't really know what mine was from, but it wasn't necessarily burnout, but I was definitely over exercising, under eating, and I started getting these crazy tension headaches and just, I didn't feel normal. I was like, I used to do all this stuff and now I can barely get out of bed and something's super, super wrong with me. And so I would go to all these doctors and they're like, nope, you're a healthy young man.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, something's seriously wrong. I wasn't like this 6 months ago. And so that's kind of how I got down that path of the longevity path and living a better quality life. Somebody introduced me to the right doctor.
Yep. That's when everything changes. Yeah. And those doctors would never tell you to get like a COVID vaccine or something. But no, I was drinking, I don't know if you remember the Celsius energy drinks.
I do.
That's when they first came on the scene.
Yeah.
I was drinking 4 or 5 of those a day just to get through the day. And those are like crack in a can.
Yeah.
I would never drink that today. I stumbled upon this doctor in Beverly Hills, you know, cutting edge kind of, and he gave me this IV of this stuff called NAD+. And I was like, started going to my body, and my body was so wrecked at that point. And so it just felt like the Spider-Man serum was going into my body. I'm like, what is this? So I felt pretty good after I got done. I was like, whoa.
Well, I think when you're in really, really bad shape, it's those people that see such a big difference in that. I
So
don't see that big of a difference when I do it.
helps me
Maybe for a
ton.
day or
And so
two.
we had one of the doctors I was working with, super well versed in genetics, and he explained it really well. But there was a reason that I felt so much better than she did, although it probably still had some good effects on her.
Listen,
I just want
everyone
to shit
should
or
take
throw
it.
up all at the same time whenever I do it.
That's good. So that means your body's ejecting all of the toxins that have been built up in your digestive system, which is like your engine.
So I was doing IV once a week, and I did it for a year because I loved it so much.
Yeah.
I have now switched to like more of a daily shot just because it's way more convenient, and I still feel as good. Like I mean, I don't know. What do you think is better?
What did you start
So
with?
intravenous is going to be the best, but I don't have the time for that. So I used to do the first week I did 4 in a row, 4 days in a row. And afterwards I'm like, I feel 1,000 times better than I did 4 days ago.
It does give you like a little surge of energy.
Well, what it does is it's already in your body. So you're just elevating the levels, but it goes and it repairs all the damaged cells in your body, and it helps push out all the toxins. So like when you say you have to shit or throw up, that's your body ejecting a bunch of toxins.
I had to just
out
go
of it.
so slow. It's an hour and a half treatment.
No,
for me.
so I have the record. I did it in 13 minutes.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Dude,
And
it's so uncomfortable. I mean, for somebody to be able to do that, I did see though Ben Greenfield one time like inject it straight.
yeah,
into his
so
arm.
it's a push. So I did a push of 500 mg.
I can't even imagine that
Oh
feeling.
my God.
feel
I
like my
dropped
head
to the
would pop
ground.
off.
Yeah, you probably
dropped.
almost pass out.
So anyway, I'm like, wow.
What did he say happened to him when he did it?
I think he videoed it. I saw a video a long time
Yeah,
ago.
I don't remember. Did he fall down? I can't remember.
I don't even
You
know.
lose all bodily control.
Yeah.
Like,
You just do it in the
can't-
bathtub.
so my doctors in Costa Rica said it's dangerous. It can stop your heart. I didn't know
I feel
that.
like that's going to do that because I
Yeah.
feel like I can't breathe.
Because like, so when they hooked me, I was just down there for a week-long treatment.
Your
We can
body's
actually
trying to
talk about
process it, and you're
Well, your heart rate starts to elevate,
Yeah.
but when you go really fast, like you're at like 160 beats a minute, and you're pouring sweat. 'Cause
Oh,
me and
my hands are like
Me and my
glistening.
friends used to race, like who could get done faster.
He
And,
does
it
like
is-
22 minutes.
when I explain it to people, you can't even explain.
But when that
The
stops, like when the drip stops, you're just
Gone.
like, whoa!
I
Like
feel
you
bad.
feel like you're like on cloud 9.
Well, you're thinking like I can't push through this for one more fucking second, and then they turn on the drip. You're like, okay, I can breathe. Keep going.
So I would turn it all the way up and then get on a conference call. So I had to focus on something else, and it'd be hard to like formulate a full sentence.
I can't talk when I'm on the phone. I
Yeah.
can't even look at my phone. I can't for that hour and a half. I just had to sit there and meditate because I can't
Really?
even do anything. And I'm one.
I feel like if you did it faster, you'd feel more results.
like when I'm driving, when I'm shitting, when I'm doing my makeup, I'm on the phone 24/7, and I cannot be on the phone in it.
Were you doing 500 milligrams at a time?
I've done it both. I've done 250, I've done 500, I've done 1,000. I think after 500, there's a point of diminishing return. But now I just do spot injecting with it. But now I know that it's so heavily like in my body that when I do an IV, I don't even feel it. Because that's my
You're
tester.
keeping your levels elevated.
Yeah,
all
so
the
I do
time.
about 1,000 milligrams a week, spaced out with 3 to 4 shots. And sometimes my heart races after I do the shot for like, 20, 30 seconds, but then the muscle like kind of dissipates.
You did the shot to me recently, didn't you?
I did. I let her try it one time because I'm doing. So I was doing 500 milligram bags a week, and then I'll go. Well, I'm just going to split it up in a shot. I just started doing the shot
Yeah.
probably 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
But it's great because I feel it's almost like that feeling you get. It's more constant over
For
time.
sure.
It's not as
But it wasn't
noticeable,
even-
but it's like
Well, because your muscle is diluting it before it hits your bloodstream.
you do feel like 10 times better when you're doing it every single day like that.
For
It's-
sure. And I just don't have time to sit and do these IVs.
Yeah.
And they're like pretty expensive. I can just inject myself for a fraction of the cost.
That's what I was going to ask. What, a whole month supply of that, how often are you supposed to be doing when you're injecting it
So
yourself?
I'm buying
every
like
day?
2,000 milligram or 5,000 milligram vials. I can't remember. It's
So you're doing it once a week?
No, I do 3 to 4 shots a day. Or sorry, a week.
Okay.
He does 1,000 milligrams broken
Yeah,
up
so-
into
Okay, I thought
7
you-
So
days.
like a
Yeah.
vial will last me like a month,
Okay,
give or
got it.
take. And that vial's like $200, $250.
Okay.
So like
Versus,
Which the
one
IVs
IV is like 500.
Yes.
yeah. So versus
So
like 2,000.
That's what I was doing. It was 500 a week.
So that's
And
a lot
but
more-
I felt so good. I was like,
but at my peak, because like I'm just like an addict, like when I get into something. So I was shooting like 15 different things. I'm taking like 75 pills. My regimen was like 20, 25 grand a month. And so I'm just
mine's
like,
mine's not that expensive, but I'm
But-
getting to the point where I went from taking 0 pills to like just hormone replacement therapy
yeah,
to now I'm doing BP 157.
you should be
It's
doing
just
that.
Too
That's,
much.
that's like a miracle thing.
So I took it for 30 days and then I stopped because Sean told me that's the best is to stop.
well, somebody
hot
had
minute.
explained
I
that.
don't think so.
Yeah, somebody explained
keep
that to
going?
me. Plus, she makes me give her the shot. So like, I have to.
He just wanted a break.
Such a pain in the ass.
So
You
I
gotta
used to
be-
have I was deathly afraid of needles. Like I
I was the same.
got in a 4-wheeler accident and wrapped a barbed wire fence, a rusty barbed wire fence around my neck, I took the risk of getting tetanus than I did of going to get a tetanus
I just got a tetanus
That's how
shot
scary.
recently because I had
I
my
was
toenail
so
almost fell off.
scared. Yeah.
But I had to get one. That motherfucker hurts.
But once I started doing this stuff, like my fear of needles evaporated within like 20 days.
It's almost doing it yourself is better than somebody
Because we're
else doing
control
it too.
freaks.
Yeah, you're.
And so like when someone else does, I could never let
Yeah.
someone else inject me.
I love
Because
it.
I always
have
felt
you,
love it.
sometimes you ever push it and like it hurts, you're like, oh, I'm going to,
Yeah.
yeah. But like when someone else does it, they're like, and you're like, dude, like that hurt.
or you're like overthinking it, and when you're doing it yourself, you have
No,
more
I
control.
like you to
over
be
it.
my
Listen,
nurse.
Control's an illusion. We all know that. But I like the ideology that I'm in control. And so giving myself shots, it's fine.
And where do you do it?
What do you mean?
Where do you do your shot?
Oh,
Arm
so
or stomach?
my shoulders and my butt cheeks.
See, I can't do butt.
Why?
I have a bad shoulder. I can't do my butt.
Oh.
I was on progesterone oil for IVF. You should have seen
Progesterone's
me
good.
trying in the hotel by myself. I'm like, trying to get my butt.
So you're doing NAD, which I do, and then
I do testosterone. Like I microdose testosterone though. So I take
Us
a tiny
too.
bit every single day.
Us too.
I take like 20 milligrams a day. So I take 140 milligrams a week. And it keeps my test around 950 to 1,000.
I'm the same way. I think I'm taking like 170 a week or 3/4 of a cc.
You're probably taking 200 mgs per ml.
Yes.
Well,
So I
his
split
got up
3
to
days a week.
1,700 one time, so he's trying
No,
to
no,
like
no. So
regulate.
here's
that.
what happened. So I was on it, and my level was always like 800 to 900. Never changed anything. When I did the genetic test, and I had MTHFR and all this other
Yeah.
stuff, and so when I started taking the right supplements to help my body convert everything,
Like methylated B
and
vitamin.
then having the right diet and nutrition, changed nothing. And it went up to like 1,700, 1,800. My doctor's like, whoa. And
Crazy.
so we had to like lower it. We
Yeah,
actually had to
I
lower-
think that's a little high. Like,
No. He said you don't ever want to be. I mean,
Because
it's for
the-
longevity, right?
you're an engine, right? So if you redline the engine, it's gonna blow at some point. I feel like at 1,000, between 900 and 1,100 is like a sweet spot for me.
Yeah.
I have unlimited energy. I feel like I'm 20 years old, but I don't think it's causing too much internal damage. If anything, it may be a benefit.
There's been a bunch of
long
studies
as
that
you
came
give
out
blood.
recently.
Yeah, I do blood work every 90 days.
Remember the old like prostate cancer study that was like 50 years old? My
Yeah.
doctor's like, they finally recently, because it was just a flawed study, he said,
Of
and they
course.
finally recently released some data that it's almost protective in prostate cancer when you don't overdo it.
They can skew a test how
Yeah.
they want. You know what I mean? It's like
Who
I
you're
just go off
polling.
how I feel and how my blood looks, and then I'll do like a genetics test every once in a while. But yeah, stem cells for me is huge. I do that.
To ask you what other
So how often
groundbreaking
do you-
things are you doing
do-
that we should know about?
So I was the sixth person to do this treatment. I did like 3 weeks ago in Costa Rica. That is
Everybody goes to Costa Rica for this.
I invested in the clinic. It was so good. It's called RMI, Regenerative Medical Institute.
I'm going because I did it in America. Well, I did it in America.
I
and
got
then-
Spencer onto it.
Yeah, he's the one that told me about it.
Yeah.
Okay, so where you just injecting it? So give me a little bit more explanation. I know you have
So
somewhere
this
else
was-
to be, but I want to hear this.
This was a week long, 5 days straight in the clinic. And so the first day I did a blood plasma exchange. So they took out 2 liters of dirty plasma and put in fresh plasma. Right there, I just felt like a weight was lifted off my shoulders.
Is that super painful?
No, you just have an IV in one arm and the other, and
Okay.
it circulates all your
Okay.
blood through this machine, and they pump out the negative stuff.
It's like
so
an
it's your
oil
own
change.
blood, but it's like detoxifying.
Well, no, but then they have these liter bags of brand new plasma that's like energized. So they're pulling out all your dirty
Okay.
plasma and putting in brand new plasma.
Okay.
So you feel just that, you feel like $1 million bucks. So they want to start with a clean slate.
And what's the benefit for that?
Your blood can transport nutrients much more efficiently. It just your blood's like your oil system of an engine, right? So like if you have the cleanest, it's like when a car gets an oil change, it's running at its highest efficiency. It's the same concept.
I donate blood kind of every
That's
what
good
he
to
said,
thin
yeah.
out your blood.
4 months or so.
Because you can have a stroke, blood clot, and all that if you're taking
Well,
testosterone and not.
Yeah, but I just started doing it because I felt a little bit better. So
Yeah.
I try to just do it no matter what, probably 3 times a year. I'll just go every, maybe a little bit longer than a quarter,
That's
but I'll just
cool.
go.
They're
and do
getting
it.
superhuman blood. They should be paying you
So
for
I
that.
want to learn because I want to do this. So
So
tell me
that's the first day. Second day, there's these things called ultrasound. They put this thing on your head, and it's called a direct focused ultrasound. And so you have to meditate for an hour twice a day.
no.
And they put these things and they push into like right here really hard, and it's targeting the hypothalamus of your brain, which controls aging, controls all your subconscious thoughts, controls subconscious.
So this is a
mechanism of
5-day protocol that you.
Yeah,
So it's
and
you
it's called
leave?
a bio reset.
Do you go in and out of the hospital?
Yeah,
or
you go
stay
twice
there
a day. So you're in
Okay.
there like 3 hours in the morning, 3 hours in the
Okay.
afternoon, and then you get like a break for like 3 hours in the middle of the day.
Okay.
So like you have to do 8 of these focused meditations with this thing on 8 times throughout the week. And because right after you do that, then they give you an infusion of stem cells or exosomes or NAD. And basically what the theory is They've done it in rats and dogs and stuff, so it's not like a theory. But it opens up the hypothalamus of your brain wide open. So when they put it in here, all of those stem cells and exosomes are
It's going to
dumping into the
repair, yeah.
hypothalamus.
Going to Costa Rica.
I was like, I couldn't sleep
For
after
Mexico.
for several days because I had so much energy.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But
Even after
then-
doing NAD, I cannot take naps. Like I can normally take a nap.
The day I did the stem cells,
Cannot
the next
sleep.
day, even though it was the one I did in America,
Yeah.
they said I couldn't work out for a week. I woke up the next 2 days. I'm like, I had so much energy. I was like, I need to do something. Like I couldn't do.
You're
That's-
walking.
That's
He
weird
was
because
walking around the
in
neighborhood.
Costa Rica they said working out's fine.
So here's what they explained to me. They said that it's gonna create a ton of inflammation if you work out, right? Like say you do a heavy leg workout, and so it's gonna go and the stem cells are gonna go toward that repair,
Yeah,
instead
right.
of like going if you had an injury or whatever. Supposedly that's what they told me.
Yeah.
But man, if I could work
That
out,
actually does make sense because the stem cells would then go and repair your damaged tissue in your muscles.
correct. And they said it'd just be less effective.
I guess with this, they really weren't worried about where the stem cells were going other than my hypothalamus. So they were like, by the time you're going to the gym the next day, like there's so many stem cells and exosomes that have buried themselves into the hypothalamus. We don't really care where the rest of them go.
So are they still injecting here? Or are they injecting
Yeah,
directly
they
in your head
inject
at
in
this
your
point?
arms.
Okay. And they just travel to that area.
Yeah, and so you do basically stem cells or exosomes or NAD twice a day with that ultrasound treatment for 4 more days. And then when you're done, you're just like, whoa.
And how
It's
much,
the
was,
best treatment of anything I've ever done.
how much
ever.
was the whole treatment?
60 or 70,000.
How many times do you do that, or like?
So I'm going to do it every year now because the business ideas that I've gotten just since I've done it are worth 100x of what that treatment costs. So like, I don't care. Like, yeah, is it expensive? Of course.
But
But,
overall
like, what's the-
clarity and how
what's
much
the-
production that you can pump out. Yeah.
My sleep is 10 times better. I've had insomnia since I was like 15.
Also, it's weird that people will go spend all this money on everything else, right? And then for your health, it's like, whoa, like
Like, let's vacation, for example.
I would spend almost every penny I had on my health because every day.
Let me guess,
feel
you
that
don't
much better.
vacation.
I just went on my first vacation.
See, you sound like him. He hates it too. It's like I'm wasting
Yeah,
time.
for my 5-year anniversary, we went to Hawaii for 8 days, and I like tried to disconnect for a little bit,
You
and
just can't.
it's hard. But like, I feel like I'm getting much better at compartmentalizing, and my fiance like wants me to do that. So like, we're not on like a romantic date, and I'm like, I just got to do this one trade,
Oh, he
or I
used to
got
be
to like.
so bad like that when we first met.
I'm
he,
like an
he had a
addict.
BlackBerry and he was like a crackhead.
I love, dude.
He had
I
to-
was before the
shoot up with
iPhone.
heroin.
I was like completely addicted to the BlackBerry. The crackberry is what they called it.
And I was like, okay, listen. We actually was one of the reasons why we broke up the first time. We've been together for 16 years off and on, almost 17. But I'm like dating a workaholic here. He's like a
She
robot.
worked a 9-to-5 job at the time. This is before she started her
Yeah.
business.
But we couldn't even go to dinner. Like we had our 1 hour, and we still do that now. We have our 1 hour where we try to spend time together and put our phones away. There are some days where you just can't. You
I
get it
know.
because the
World
shit has to hit the
meltdown, yeah.
fan, or if it's like something big going on, or you're waiting for a call. But this was every single night on his BlackBerry like this, huh? What? And I'm like, why am I even in a relationship with this guy? He wouldn't travel with me, wouldn't do anything.
Yeah, you become secondary.
You have to be able to cut it off to some extent. Doesn't mean you have to totally
This
like.
is also like when I was 26 or 27 years old. So
Yeah.
everything is
He was
just
like this,
really
yeah.
taken off, and I'm
Right.
like, I can't not seize the opportunity. And
Yeah.
so I love you. I don't want.
I
you
didn't want to
leave.
hold him
5
back.
minutes is like 5
Yeah.
hours.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I love you, and I've never wanted to be with somebody so much, but I have to go where I'm going with these goals, right? And so
Don't make the addict choose
yeah,
between his addiction and something else.
Oh, I didn't even make him choose. I just said I don't want to be
She
in it.
left,
It
yeah.
wasn't even like a will you please change.
Yeah,
I'm not
she
even like
left. At
that.
that
I don't
point, she
ever
was
want to
like-
take that away from him.
she
It's
left
just
and
not
she
the
started her
timing.
business that year, and then it all changed.
And then he dealt with me like that for like 8 years.
No, because then like a year
But-
and a half later, one of her friends said, "Hey, I think she misses you. She you should reach out to her." I'm like, I still feel the same about her.
Yeah.
And so we ended up going on a date or two, and then she was like, "I understand everything that you were doing. I get it. I
Yep.
understand."
She caught the bug.
Yeah, we don't ever do anything that holds either one of the other party out on what they're
it's
doing
hard.
and
You
what
have
their
to have
goals
somebody
are.
that supports you, especially when you're in your 20s, like taking your most risks. and,
Yeah.
like,
Because
that's a
you can
huge
recover,
time.
right?
Yeah.
So your risk profile lowers as you get older because you would never want to restart from zero.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you still have to take risk. But like in your 20s, you're literally putting it all on the table and being like, I'm going all in on black. And
Yeah,
so like
you
every
really are.
minute is like a big deal.
You really are.
But now, like after like 6 p.m., like I put my phone to the side and then I check it like once an hour or two, just to make sure like that there's no like issues I have to deal with.
That's actually huge.
yeah.
I can't do that. Him and I don't do that.
Yeah, so I think my fiance really has gained a newfound respect for me because before I would just be like so consumed with the phone.
If you ever want to be in a relationship, though, it's exactly like being.
But I
you
think
can be a food
balance-
addict, drug addict,
Like,
whatever it
who-
may be. They're
Who wants to be a lonely old rich dude, right?
exactly. It's
I,
like, what did you work so
I
hard
plan on
for?
wanting to have children soon, so it's like I don't want to be like an. even if I'm in the room, I don't want to be an absentee father because I'm on my phone all the time.
Can you imagine what Elon Musk is like? With his
He has
family?
11 children.
Yeah. I have a lot
Literally.
of respect for him. There's no other person that can have that many big ideas and also execute
on them.
That is so,
And so fast.
He's one of one.
Yeah, there's nobody.
His visions are so grandiose and
but
crazy.
then execution.
Yeah.
That's everybody can have this.
Everyone's
idea
a
and this-
dreamer, right?
Dude, he executes on everything.
But relationships obviously suffer with him.
I
But
get
it doesn't even
and
matter.
It
He's
is
on,
what
he's
it
on,
is.
the,
To change the
he's on the
world,
spectrum at some point, and I just don't even think
But
he
to
even
change the
cares.
world, it's not-
He doesn't
there
care.
is no,
Yeah.
like-
He's on a different path. Like
Yeah.
he owes that to humanity to like
No,
do what he's
I
doing.
do agree.
And so like, does the rest of his life suffer? But
He
I
doesn't-
think
he doesn't
he's-
care.
He's doing
Emotionally,
what he
he's
loves. Like
disconnected,
it's
yeah.
like, yeah, listen, my companies and my visions come first, and then you'll come somewhere behind that. And if you can handle that, then great.
Then you can stick around.
Yeah.
Well, we really appreciate you coming. I know you have some
No,
other
thank you so
calls
much
today.
for having me. This has been fun.
Yeah,
But I
this
feel like
is
there's so
cool.
much more to talk about, so we'll have to
Yeah, we'll
meet
I'm
up
sure
with you
we'll
next
connect
time.
again.
Yeah,
Las
we can do a
Vegas.
follow-up or something. Hopefully I have some really
We'll do
cool,
it while-
crazy stories for you guys.
We'll do it while we're laying in Costa Rica. That's what we'll do our next one.
So where can people find you on social media? What are you most active on?
I try to stay off social media anymore. I used to be super active. The Matthew Morgan, I think, is my Instagram handle. Matt L. Morgan, I think, is my X or my Twitter. Facebook, I think it's just Matthew Morgan or something. I don't know. But I'm not as active on social media as I should be.
Well, I'm sure they want to hear more or dig into your past or be stalkers.
Oh,
so
yeah.
they can find
I have a website too at MatthewLeeMorgan.com.
you. Okay, perfect.
So, yeah, thanks for having me, guys. It's been fun, and would love
let
to do a follow-up sometime.
we'll let you know how Costa Rica goes.
Well, I'm getting that information right now, so we'll see.
Okay, cool.
Okay, thanks again.
All right, thanks,
All right, man.
guys.